More problems with VTA vehicles sitting idle, but we're not talking about those 95 neglected Priuses and vans that we reported on earlier. After that story, investigative reporter Candice Nguyen learned about a fleet of buses also just parked for years.
Similar to the Priuses and vans, VTA says the pandemic and staffing shortages caused delays in auctioning off these old buses. But unlike the cars, the agency says the buses weren't neglected, and it took quicker action. This is new drone video of Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority's, or VTA's, Cerrone Division lot in San Jose. That row of buses lining a fence are all retired. Just a handful of the dozens of buses the agency told us it decommissioned but didn't auction off earlier. The agency says it was in the process of seeking out a new auction house contractor. And when the pandemic hit, staff that usually prepared the buses for auction had to retrofit other buses with barriers, hand sanitizers, and mask dispensers. Recent satellite photos show some of the old buses have been sitting idle since 2019. For more than 2 months, our investigative unit has been asking to talk with VTA staff about how the agency is trying to recoup some of the tens of millions of taxpayer dollars it spent on its now retired vehicles. The agency turned us down again, but told us in an email it's already auctioned off most of the buses, with roughly 18 still in the yard waiting to be processed.
Certainly, we're not living in the regular years.
Giovanni Tricella is a transportation studies professor at UC Davis. He says the pandemic hit transit agencies hard, especially back-end operations, including reselling old vehicles.
There's been big issues with the pandemic and all the changes in the market and everything that was happening in society that certainly has disrupted the process.
VTA doesn't expect to get much for the buses at auction. Brand new, they cost about $500,000 each and will likely sell for less than $1,000. There's just very little demand for old retired buses, the agency says. But it could be a very different story with the decommissioned fleet of 95 VTA Priuses and vans our investigative unit first showed you in January. VTA board chairperson Cindy Chavez told us rather than leaving all of those cars parked out on a lot for more than 4 years, staff should have tried to auction them off much earlier. She says the agency has an obligation to get as much money back as it can because it involves public dollars.
I worry that we missed a really important opportunity because, as you'll recall, during COVID, there was a big strain on supply chains and there was a high level of interest to be able to buy used automobiles.
After our first reports, VTA started the process to auction off those cars. An important step to get back on track post-pandemic, which Chichilla says is no easy task.
Public agencies are called actually to difficult jobs in providing services and also doing responsible use of public funding.
These old buses were definitely used. They each have about 1 million miles on them after being driven for 15 to 20 years. Now, even when we're not in a pandemic, VTA says it can take months to auction them off because you need permits, storage space, and staff who aren't juggling a number of other responsibilities. With the investigative unit, I'm Candice Nguyen, NBC Bay Area News.